After the dry and gloomy nature of Order of the Phoenix, I felt the franchise ran its course. Half-Blood Prince was the only film in the series I didn't see in theaters. The story stopped feeling like a fantasy, and the filmmaking became grittier. The latter four movies were directed by the same filmmaker, David Yates, and I felt that ever since he took over, the films simply weren't as fun, taking themselves more seriously. However, that could also be attributed to the author. I read all the books, and even with Yates taking the helm, Rowling was taking the series into a grim direction. At this point, fans were guessing whether or not the main protagonist would survive in the end, given the nature of the prophecy at the end of the last film. In Half-Blood Prince, Harry enters his 6th year at Hogwarts and begins his term with a surprise visit from Dumbledore, who coldly ignored him in the last movie. They visit Dumbledore's former acquaintance, Horace Slughorn, played by Jim Broadbent, who Dumbledore persuades to teach at Hogwarts. Dumbledore reveals that Slughorn will undoubtedly show interest in him throughout the term. Reunited with Hermione and the Weasleys, there's an awkwardly tender moment shared between Harry and Ron's little sister, Ginny, whose life he saved in Chamber of Secrets. I say awkward because up to this point, Harry only showed interest in Cho Chang. We then get to the villains, Snape, who keeps us guessing what side he's on, as well as the deranged Bellatrix Lestrange and her sister Narcissa, Draco Malfoy's mom. We aren't quite sure what they're up to, but given the state of things, Narcissa asks Snape to swear an unbreakable vow in order to help Draco perform a mysterious task. In Diagon Alley, Harry, Ron, and Hermione tail Draco to a dark magic shop where they see him engaging with Death Eaters, one of whom is a wanted criminal named Fenrir Greyback. On the train, Harry uses his invisibility cloak to find out what Malfoy is up to, and Malfoy somehow discovers and petrifies him. The rivalry between these two is pretty intense at this point. Luna Lovegood, of all people, finds Harry with a pair of hippy-dippy spectacles and revives him. Professor Slughorn introduces his potions class to Felix Felices, a potion that will give its bearer a spurt of good luck.
Liquid luck.
And sets a contest where the winner receives a vial of the potion. When Harry opens his used book, he sees an inscription that says, "Property of the Half-Blood Prince," and as he flips through the book, he sees handwritten notes that give suggestive hints, giving Harry a slight advantage over his classmates.
Crush it, don't cut it.
No, the instructions specifically say to cut.
No, really.
Dumbledore allows Harry a look into his distant past using a pensieve, a bowl used to collect his thoughts and memories. The flashback sequence is interesting to watch simply at a photographic level, using that saturated, decaying look from The Matrix. But this is also the scene where we see just how screwed up Tom Riddle was before he transformed into Voldemort. For the first time, Ron tries out for the Quidditch team, and even gets a little help from Hermione, who watches from the sidelines. Also watching from the sidelines is Ron's eventual, obsessive girlfriend, Lavender Brown. All is fun and games at Hogsmeade until Harry and the gang encounter a girl who convulses uncontrollably. What evil spirits possessed her? You know, this started out as an innocent kid series. There's nothing kiddyish about this. As it turns out, she was carrying a trinket intended for Dumbledore. During Ron's first Quidditch game, Ron performs admirably after Harry hints at mixing in a little liquid luck with his breakfast, revealing to Hermione afterwards that Ron won on his own merit. This is also a delicate time for Hermione when she sees Ron snogging with Lavender, much to the cheers of the other Gryffindors. This leads Hermione into a mild, jealous rage as Harry comforts her. It marks one of the few times where Harry and Hermione share genuine closeness with one another. She also reveals her knowledge of Harry's recent affection for Ginny, but again, it's underplayed. Even when he goes back to the Burrow, he and Ginny share a teasing on-screen moment of closeness, and then it gets shattered when the Death Eaters, led by a cackling Helena Bonham Carter, invades the Weasleys' home, setting it on fire and provoking a battle. It's actually an intense scene, and there's a tinge of sadness as Molly looks on at her smoldering house. Now explain something to me. You are a witch, right? At the beginning of the film, we see Dumbledore and Slughorn clean up an entire house with a few swishes of their wands. This is kind of the same thing, isn't it? Harry goes back to the pensieve, where Dumbledore shows him one of Slughorn's distant memories involving Tom Riddle. Portions of this flashback are intentionally muffled, leading Dumbledore to conclude that Slughorn tampered with his own memory. Someone tricks Ron into drinking a love potion, and to snap him out of it, Slughorn gives him a concoction that gives Ron rabies, I guess. In the hospital, Ron accidentally breaks Lavender's heart by calling for Hermione in his sleep. It's a small scene, but given that most Harry Potter fans wanted to see them get together, it was satisfying.
Oh, to be young and to feel love's keen sting.
There's also a grisly scene where Malfoy sends a bird through an undisclosed device, and it returns dead. That little twerp who stole Neville's ball way back in the Sorcerer's Stone is turning into a real little hellspawn, isn't he?
Maybe if the fat lad had given this a squeeze, he would remember to fall on his fat ass.
A pivotal scene is where Harry corners Malfoy in a bathroom, and during a quick duel, he employs a new spell he learned from his bootlegged potions book that results in disaster for Malfoy. I thought Professor Umbridge's cruel and unorthodox punishment in the last movie was chilling, but now that I'm revisiting this one, this scene's definitely more brutal. Not to mention more effective because it's Harry dealing out the punishment. It's a great scene because it plays with Harry's dark side, and it teaches him a hard lesson about using unfamiliar spells. I also love how eerily tender Snape is when coming to Malfoy's aid. It's a side of the character we've never seen before. All throughout the movie, he acts as Malfoy's mentor, the same way Dumbledore mentors Harry. It plays with your head because we still don't know where Snape's loyalties are. Harry sets out on a mission to uncover the truth about Slughorn's confrontation with Tom Riddle. He uses his vial of liquid luck, and instantly he becomes Rain Man. He finds out where Professor Slughorn is, getting him to follow Harry to Hagrid's hut, where Hagrid mourns the death of Aragog, the giant spider from Chamber of Secrets that looked as dead then as he does now. After getting particularly drunk while celebrating Aragog's life, Harry uses Slughorn's affection for his mother to get him to hand over the uncensored memory. Without ruining an integral plot point, Dumbledore realizes he has to look for something, and takes Harry to a cave where ultimately he forces Harry to spoon-feed him poison. On the brink of death, the two barely escape with their lives. Dumbledore exchanges some heartfelt words with Harry, and before we know it, Harry sneaks into hiding while Malfoy attempts to assassinate Dumbledore. Unable to commit the crime, Snape, who has the nerve to shush Harry, steps in and fulfills his vow by killing Dumbledore himself. This is one of the most profound moments in the series, and yet we still don't know what side Snape is on. I mean, he killed Dumbledore, so he has to be bad, right? To be continued in another movie. When I brought this movie home on DVD, I was pissed. I really wished I hadn't second-guessed it. It's a very well-made, thought-provoking chapter in the franchise, and in case you're wondering if it reveals the secrets of Voldemort's power, it does. Half-Blood Prince pulls the characters out from the innocent wizarding world that Rowling played with in the first 4 books, and puts them in an almost real-world setting where they're starting to learn not to play with fire. This is the Harry Potter film that shows us the other side of the coin. The world these characters inhabit is an unfriendly place. Things are pretty messed up when Snape, the teacher we've come to despise for 5 films, is suddenly seen as sympathetic toward a student we feel similar emotion toward. It doesn't just give us a villain to hate, but it gives us a reason as to why Voldemort was so feared. This was a trend that would obviously transfer over to the next 2 films. It's a moving, profound, and honestly well-made entry in the series that balances a lot of plot threads and actually gives the supporting characters something to do again. Something that I felt lacked in the 5th movie. It allows us to value hope while continuing to steer us down a dark, uncertain path. Bottom line, Half-Blood Prince does something that the series hasn't been able to do since Goblet of Fire. It makes us care again.